Hi there guys, welcome to another edition of the Cover Zero Show with me, your host, Simon Conboy, continuing just to plough on through the AFC East and these free agency first wave reviews. This episode will be focusing on the New York Jets. So of course, one of the most negative fan bases I've encountered at this point in time after last season. Expectations surprisingly high after a very successful first season under Todd Bowles. There was all the mess with Ryan Fitzpatrick last off-season. I think that really carried over into the season. Absolute disaster. Saw a lot of players that I don't think were giving maximum effort. Getting older at a lot of positions. It was a very experienced roster. A lot of those players now gone. The talent base now looks pretty poor. I mean, they've invested so heavily in the defensive line. That bit looks stout, but a couple of those players don't seem particularly happy. Overall, just a bit of a disaster. I mean, offensively, total mess. Bought in Forte, which looked like a solid signing, but the offensive line struggled. Fitzpatrick reverted to turnover machine form, which we've seen from him in the past. They certainly had to know it was going to be a possibility. The offensive line, Nick Mangold got injured. The line was poor defensively. Leonard Williams came on great. He had a great season. Both Richardson and Mohamed Wilkerson, though, I think they let themselves down with some subpar seasons for their talent level. Saw some lethargy from Richardson in particular. Don't think he was giving full effort. Darrelle Revis, he's had a couple of those injuries. I think it's finally caught up to him. It's always going to be hard, being the style of corner that he is, and he's the best pure man corner when he was in his prime that I've personally ever seen. But unfortunately, we saw game one, AJ Green had his way with him. Didn't get a huge amount better from over the course of the season. Of course, got a lot of criticism. He's no longer with the team. That contributed, I think, to the decline of that defense as well. Generally, not a huge amount of talent on this roster. Very poor season. They've said they're not in a rebuild. They're lying. They clearly are. They really have no choice if they're going into next season looking to compete for the playoffs in what could be a very competitive division. I would be absolutely shocked. I understand the Jet fans' negativity. I really feel like this is a team in disarray at this moment in time, and they're going to have to commit to that rebuild because it's not going to be positive soon. So primary needs I had listed going into free agency, and again, this is primary. I feel there's a lot more needs pretty much across the board on this roster. Quarterback, the obvious one. Just get that out of the way. We may see Jay Cutler in New York, which would certainly be interesting to see how the media deal with him. He's not going to deal with them. We know that. Offensive tackle, that O-line has to be better. Otherwise, whoever they've got playing quarterback is going to have a hard time. And they need defensive backs, corners in particular. With Revis being gone, I don't know what's going on with Cromartie. Need some youth, need some talent there. D. Milner did not work out. They're going to have to get better there. Otherwise, it's going to be ugly, in particular in those two games where they're going to have to deal with the New England Patriots. So, I mean that I can say, need pass rushers from the outside. Like the D-line's fine, but they could do with an edge rusher, a proper edge rusher. Receivers, Eric Decker's at his best when he's got someone across from him. With Brandon Marshall gone, they need those as well. They need interior O-linemen. They need a top young running back. Needs galore in New York. So the signings that they've made thus far, not being particularly active at this point. Kelvin Beachum, the somewhat injury-prone left tackle from the Jags. Whether he'll be playing left or right, I don't know. Quite hard to gauge from this contract. It's a 3-year, $24 million with $12 million guaranteed deal. I think this may actually be one of the better signings in that not particularly good tackle market. I think when he's healthy, he's a pretty good player. Not great, but pretty good. And pretty good makes you, bordering on exceptional in this tackle market that was available this year. It's probably a slight overpay considering the injury history, but if he can come back healthy and I think then he'll perform better than the other tackles that have been signed this off-season. So it's a pretty reasonable contract, particularly if they're asking him to man the left tackle spot. So yeah, that one's a good signing. So we've got the positive O-line sign. Then they've got Benny Jalana, the guard, on a 2-year, $11 million deal. I wouldn't want him to be starting. I would guess, based on what he's been paid, there's a good chance he will be. And what else they've got? The spot. He'll certainly be in contention. Okay if he's a backup. Wouldn't want him starting. He's a bit of a liability, not a particularly good player, particularly in the passing game. So you always need linemen. I feel like they could have done better there, even if it's bringing in like one of them older guys. If you're only going to do a 2-year deal, get someone a bit more proven. I don't think there's a huge amount of upside to this deal at all. And I've bought in Martin, the outside linebacker. I should have made a note where from. I'm not particularly familiar with the player. 2 years, 2.8. I guess that's just compete for a spot in a rotation, something along those lines. Not likely to be a starter on that kind of money. Lost several players. Geno Smith's still out there. Brandon Marshall, of course, has gone out to the opposite side of New York. I can understand why he wanted to go. Ryan Clady's still out there. I don't know, if he's got much left in the tank. Injuries really have sapped him. He was a great player a few years ago, but unfortunately he's been unlucky in that regard. Revis still out there. I can't see him coming back to New York. I don't think the player wants to be there at this point. It's just I don't think it's a particularly good fit. Bruce Carter still out there, middling kind of linebacker. He could come back just for the depth. And of course, Nick Mangold, who's been one of the best centres in the league since he was drafted, getting older, had a high cap number. No shock to see him a cap casualty. I imagine he may want to go to a contender. So yeah, there's your New York Jets going into next year. Still don't see anything at quarterback. Jay Cutler looks like it's been heavily discussed. I don't know if there's been any sort of communication there. It's just, people reading the teas and being like, well, it kind of makes sense. Cutler, I always think's had a worse kind of rap just because the way he handles himself, which I think is perfectly fine off the field. I don't mind that kind of surly, disinterested nature personally, like dealing with the media. I definitely don't mind that in one of my players. I know some franchises don't want that from their quarterback. They want someone who's a bit more engaging. But yeah, on the field, I think it could probably be disheartening if you're that kind of player, to have this guy leading you, because he certainly does not look fussed. But win or lose, he doesn't look that interested. So I think at least he's consistent, steady player. But he's still better than what a lot of teams are going to be trotting out there, I think. So whether he'd want to go to New York, I'm not sure. See what happens there, but this team's got a lot of work to do. I think we can see they may not have said it, but they're in a rebuild. Just going to have to take talent in the draft. As I say, so many needs. I don't know if there's a quarterback out there that they'll be able to bring in where they're picking, in the first round. I don't know if you'd want anyone starting day one. On a roster this bad in particular, I think it's very hard to develop a quarterback by playing him from day one. So, we'll see what they do. Needs abound. I think this is going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL next season. Let me know what you guys think. Do you have hope for the Jets? Anyone think they're going to, contend in any way, shape or form? What do you think they need to do? How do you think they should solve this quarterback's quandary that they find themselves in? The once proud Jets defense looks like a shell of its former self to me. Do you think they should move any of those defensive linemen? Perhaps, especially if you're rebuilding, try and move one of those guys and get a few more picks. Perhaps, I'm not sure you really need to have 3 high-end defensive linemen when you're in the situation the Jets currently are, particularly with the money, Richardson and Wilson are on. What do you guys think? What would you sort of want in compensation for them? let me know in the comments or on Twitter, on the Facebook page. I'll do my best to get back to you all. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Check out the Patreon. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please check out some of the rest of my videos, and it's been a pleasure. Thank you for watching, and go Bucks.